if you would close your eyes, the opera is going to be exactly the same as most Mikados you would see. Hopefully that's just the beginning, though. I think what's going to go on stage is going to very much complement the music. And I know this from watching the fresco opera productions. Plots are changed a little bit, but it always complements the music. It always mixes really well. So if you're a traditionalist and you're worried about the update, come in, enjoy the nice warm air or the nice cold air in music halls, and close your eyes and get exactly what you want. But I would suggest opening them up and seeing the stuff that can be done with this production and still be a traditional, beautiful, exotic production, but based on a different sort of Japanese art than it originally was. The music we're using, the score we're using, is all pretty standard stuff. When I work, especially in English opera, I think it's my main job to get the text to be understood. We can all go to English opera, and English is not a fantastic language to sing in. So most of my work is going to be going towards making sure everybody in the house understands what's being said. Because a lot of times in an Italian opera, the text is much easier to sing. English, it's really hard to spit the text out. So it will be the same music. There's really nothing different about the score I'm using. But hopefully you will just be able to understand things clear as a bell. The opening chorus is really interesting because it does set the stage very well. They're saying that basically if you see things that you're not used to, people carrying themselves in a certain way, it's what happened in the court. It's how they do things in Japan. And once again, we understood what was going on in Japan through the art of the day, and now we're reinterpreting it into a more recent art that's coming out of Japan, the anime. Operas placed in exotic locations, Madame Butterfly, all the Puccini stuff that's placed in different lands. They use exotic scales, pentatonic scales, things like that, but they're not the correct scales. It's always what we think is Japanese or Chinese. There's a story that Puccini was at the premiere of Madame Butterfly, and the Japanese ambassador came up to him and said, you know, Mr. Puccini, that was very fine indeed. We enjoyed the show. None of those things you did had anything to do with Japanese music. And we know, of course, that women don't commit harikari, and you know, all sorts of things that people like to believe about certain cultures. And opera composers really sort of exploit that. All the Gilbert text, it's always sarcastic and it's always mocking of the hierarchy and the government and the class system of England. Yeah. It's how many ways he can superimpose it in different places. So places like Utopia, another exotic location. And the same thing happens there, oddly, that happens everywhere in Gilbert and Sullivan opera. So he just superimposes whatever situation and just puts the text right over it, and it sometimes, a lot of it refers to exactly the same thing. I think every year this is such a great summer tradition, and I think the shows are always quite fine, and I know we have a big following in town, and I just think everybody should come and see it, and bring your sons and your daughters and your cousins and your nephews and things like that, and really expose people to this great, very stylistically perfect sort of genre. And then I think even, you know, if you bring younger children. I think they're going to identify with certain characters on stage, and if we can get them to hear the great music and taste that great Gilbert sarcasm, I think it'll be great for everybody.